Okay, so just as a quick preview, this is what we're going to try and do today. So we clean it up a bit. We've got these um, detailed descriptions in there as well for each one of the groups, and yeah, so we're going to try and achieve this in this video to make it just look a little bit nicer. And maybe also one of the things I need to do is just remove the padding at the top of the group. So without further ado, let's get started. So last time I said I'll do a video on upgrading Next and Tailwind, so I actually just went ahead and that without doing the video. So all I did was just kind of change the Next dependency to 12, the Tailwind one to 3. I needed to upgrade the Tailwind file to this. And then I also needed to upgrade some of my ESLints to reflect the new updates to Next and to Tailwind. Yeah, that was it. So one of the things you'll see that it says now, when we open this file up, it says that we need to do a function component for each one of these. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. We're going to go do that by saying that yarn lint fix. So yarn lint fix is just one of the scripts I added to package. You'll see there it is up there, and then next lint, and then it just fixes those things for us. So you'll see there's still some stuff left on forms that we need to go and fix now. So let's see if, yeah, so it's still complaining about that. So we're just going to go there. We're just going to fix that one for now. We're not going to fix that for now. We are going to just maybe try and fix this one. It's going to be relatively simple because all we need to do is, I think, this, if I remember correctly. Yeah, cool. So what that does is just says, okay, well, take the index, the first item of this, and then just assign it to this value. Because essentially what this equal statement does, it says that this is equal to that. So the first thing it does, it says, okay, the left-hand side is an array now. And what we can do is we can say, okay, well, let's reference the first item in that index, and then it's going to be this value here, or this variable over here. And then that gets set to whatever is the value in the first index of this array. So it's a bit of a backwards way of thinking of. The first time I saw this was, I think, in Elixir and Phoenix. Was a bit weird for me back then to see it as well, but once I got used to it, it was kind of nice. So let's see. So okay, so we're running yarn again. So if we go back here now, you'll see, okay, we're back to the way it used to look. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go and try and get back to that. So the first thing that we did is we went and changed these items to objects. And the way we did that is we just said, okay, well, I'm going to make that an object. We're going to make that an object. I'm going to make that an object. And actually, let's just put something in here. So we're going to say that the form part of this right now is going to be called the inputs. For lack of a better name for now, I don't know what else to call it right now. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so right now it doesn't want to help us, but that's fine. I'm going to call this inputs as well. We're going to see, okay, so our first problem is on 189. So that is going to be form groups dot. So this is for the form state. Okay, so then 175 is our next problem. So then this is also going to be inputs. The form group element, that is going to change to name, I think. Okay, cool. I think we kind of got back to where we were. So we're going to duplicate that. We're going to say, I think, Let's make that 700. The reason why we're making that a bit higher is because we're adding this one here. We're making that 500. We want to take that in there, and we're going to change that to description. And I think at the moment it's going to complain because there isn't a description or a name to any of the stuff that we have below here. And it still can't be bothered formatting this. Oh, I think this is the prettier that's actually combined. I don't think this is Island. So one of the things we can actually try and do is have prettier run on save as well. Okay, so let's see. So insert. I'm not going to worry too much about this. Okay, so let's go. Name is details. Description is details description. Just going to duplicate that. I'm going to say, okay, well, I'm going to call that address, and we're going to call this address description. And that should be fine. So the reason why my ESLint works a little bit different at the moment is I tried to actually take out ESLint from NeoVim's alias and then put it in the null alias, and then that probably kind of made it go a bit wonky. So it's something I still need to fix. Okay, so that looks okay-ish. So we got the descriptions now in there as well, and we got the names. So I like the way that that looks at the moment. I'm just gonna go then subgroup is I think where I want to be. Think I need to remove that. If I remember correctly, what I did then was space x1. Then what that meant, what I could do was go to the base text input, and then let's say, for instance, remove that. I think one of the things I did was also move that to bottom, move that to bottom, remove that. I think let's look for any references to px1. Couldn't find it. Okay, so let's see what this looks like. Okay, so we still got the problem at the moment that we've got the shadow and the background and around the corners. So let's remove that. Okay, so now it looks a little bit better to me, and that looks cleaner, I think, because we don't have that much UI fluff in it. So what I want to do is also go BG gray 50, and then go focus BG white. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, I kind of like that, but what I also want to do is just drop the shadow from here. Okay, see what that looks like. Maybe the border, let's see, FB. Okay, let's see what this looks like. Nope, let's keep the border there for now. But what I can do is try to make the border a bit more interesting, or a bit, no, let's keep it 300. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to do this for select as well. So we're going to say, okay, so that is already sort of there. Just need to put a hover state on it. And then go BG gray 50. Border 300, focus, outline, ring. Let's drop the shadow. Okay, so I did this the last time, or one of the last videos, where I tried to style the checkbox. So the way that you apparently looks like you style the checkbox is, sorry about that, is by having to have this, where is it, appearance none in there. And when I did that, it kind of worked. So let's actually try and, while we are trying to do some basic styling on the radius. So if we go class name and we say appearance none, I think rounded, full, border, I think it was height 4, width 4 as well. Okay. Interesting. Let's make that BG white for now. Okay, so let's make that thing checked, border blue 500. Okay, so how did I do the checkbox again? I just want to check the styling for the checkbox and maybe put it down by the checkbox as well. So BG white, check BG white. Okay, so checked has a border 4. I think it's just a normal border if it's not checked. Then what I do is just go BG gray 50. What I also want to do down here for the checkbox is also do the BG gray 50. Okay, that doesn't look half bad. Maybe also take the transition and the off of that. Okay, so what we can also do is maybe change the checkboxes. E to change e dot target dot checked. And we can actually just delete this. Okay. So one of the other things we need to sort out is, okay, so sort out this as well. Yeah, also sort out that. And then by the looks of it, if I'm not wrong, the Apple Pay and the credit card isn't quite one underneath the other. So let's see. So for the radio box, we've got hide BG gray checkbox. If we look down at our groups, there should be one next to the other. So, but then that means name and surname should have the same sort of problem. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, so I need to sort out that null things at some point. It's gonna drive me crazy. Let's see, checkbox, ready box. So it was, where do we go? So we're going to our subgroup. I think one of the things I did was I only applied this to medium layout. So let's see. So that sort of works. Another thing with the subgroup, what I probably want to do then is to I want to see what happens if I do a justify center and then also items. Okay, not much. So the thing that's bothering me at the moment is that so I'm trying to kind of get the checkbox to appear a bit nicer within a group, but not specifically try and style the checkbox. So I'm trying to kind of create the idea that there might be more space around the checkbox, because for like the text inputs, you see for the text input, they've got their own kind of, they've got padding by virtue of the fact that they've got this border and then like this internal padding as well from the border to the text, but with the checkboxes and the radio buttons you don't get that. Another thing that I'm looking at now is the fact that the select box doesn't look like it's still got any sort of default background that's actually appearing for it, because it still looks like, oh okay, so let's do, so it is appearing, just not in the way that I wanted it to. I wanted only on focus to be white. Okay, cool. So that actually looks cool now. So we've got that, we've got that. So it means I also need to do the same for the checkboxes, for the radio button. So what I need to do is I need to grab this and I need to put that on up here, delete that. Put that at the end. I think I probably applied some stylings to the label for the ML2 text gray, and then so if it's done like that, credit card, Apple Pay, Speedy. Okay, so that doesn't look half bad. Okay, cool. So we've done that part now. So what we want to do is just make sure that when we try to actually do anything with our form, ooh, okay, our surname has all of a sudden become a password. Or was it always like that? So let's see. So country is 2, line 121, name, paid shipping, yeah, paid shipping, credit card, payment method, yeah. surname something something. Okay, so the form still looks to be working just fine. Okay, so let's see. Let's go back here. So we still got this problem with the index where the form group element is but never used, which means that for the form group references I can actually delete the form group element. I can go to form group and then I can also delete that. What I'm actually just going to do is do this. So yarn lint fix. Okay. So now let's fix the file for us. I can also just okay. So one of the other things also training this object is we can put additional features in here. So we can, when we pass through the form to the form builders, we can start adding UIDs to each one of these groups, which means at least one of these indexes we can fix. So we can say, okay, well, we can fix, let's say, I think the form group part, because with the form group part, we can say, okay, well, the key is going to be some sort of UID that we generate off of the form group. So what we can also then try and do with this is go form group dot name, for instance, and then we can take off the index. And for the subgroup, one of my thoughts for the subgroup was to generate an index off of all the names that's in the subgroup. So basically say, okay, well, take, let's say this name plus this name, and then that becomes the subgroup for all of this stuff, and then same thing for all of these names. So okay, I'm not going to fix that one right now. So let's say for subgroup, say that, okay, so item builder, form input. So the form input is then all of the input rows within the okay, so subgroup form index. Okay, so let's see. Because we've got the form group with the name description, which then goes to all the inputs and then generates the subgroup. So for the subgroup then, it's essentially just all the inputs. So what we can do is then try to do like index, remove that index, say, okay, well, this index is going to be form input dot map I dot name no, there was just a concat operation. Okay, what we also need to do by the looks of it is put this thing into a proper function and then return that, remove that. Hopefully this will make it happy. So let's see. So we've got const index form input dot map I equals that. The problem for that, that's going to return okay, we need to go back and start yarn again. And then hope it doesn't croak somewhere. So form input, at least to my knowledge, should be an array. If I remember correctly. So yeah, one of the things we really need to do at some point is actually add typings to all of this stuff. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so it says object. So what we can do then is go form input dot inputs dot map this is going to completely freak out because it's not going to know what to do with this. We actually need a function like this, which basically just flattens the map one level down. Okay. Name, label, address. Okay. So form input is actually the name of that. So key can be the form input dot ternary explanation form input dot name. So the value there is for so the value that we put there is a ternary operation. So we say, well, if this thing has a value, then add the value to the index. So we're doing that for the checkboxes. So let's see what we get. Two children with the same key, address keys. Okay, so we still got this problem where we have name, surname, line, country, paid method. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So that's why. Details, address, shipping, payment. Okay, that's interesting. So I don't think it's on the form input that we're getting this. I think it's on the form group that is complaining about the fact that we've got duplicates. So address, shipping, payment. So basically we're just going to test the hypothesis here, saying that address 1, 2, 3. So from the form group, from the inputs, so that's the problem. So we're basically mapping through the inputs of the form group, but the problem for address is that we've got two separate ones. So for shipping, we have them all in the same input. So there's only one input for shipping, payment, and details, but there's two inputs for address. So what we need to do is we do need to do some sort of pre-processing on form. We're going to do this by... The one problem with this at the moment is that the form is a prop, and I don't think React is going to like it if we try to change prop. So what we can do is we can try maybe doing a derivative of the index. So we can say for the form group that we're trying to render out, so you can say, okay, well, it's going to be the form group name. Then what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, it's still not going to very much like the fact that we're using the index, probably. But it is for now going to solve a problem. But the problem with that is, again, it's not, what's the word? It's basically not any better than what we had already. What we would ideally like is to, again, go through something like the subgroup, map the inputs, say, use the input.names, and then join that. So not that, not that. So what now with the join we have here is on I think there is a way in JavaScript to say, okay, well, because this effectively generates an array of strings. We've got the same problem now where we also need to do this. So, well, we're going to return this. Okay, so let's see. So we got const input name, subgroup name, that. Right. We now force refresh. It sort of works. I'm pretty sure though if we do the input names. Okay, let's actually just do this. I want to see what Chrome throws out. Chrome should be reasonably small enough to give us input names. Okay, so concat basically adds something to the array, which is sort. Yeah, it's not. Oh, okay. So here's the join. So okay, now we kind of just need a join operator to use. I'm tempted to say just not do anything right now. This is what sometimes I do miss WebStorm. Okay, so we fixed that. Now we need to fix this. Now the problem with fixing this is that I did try something previously where I changed these things to just for statements. The first thing that happened is that Lynn started complaining about the fact that it's now a bunch of for loops, and then the other problem was it said it's slow or something like that. The other problem with that is it still didn't work because it's then complained about the fact that we're using these use states conditionally instead of just having one. So ideally what we'd have to do with that then is basically build up a form state within one use state, and then somehow make sure that when we change the inputs, it only changes that particular input. So essentially I have one big object within a use state, and then when we pass through the bits and parts of it, or maybe the whole, to each one of the inputs, then each one of those inputs needs to then basically just update their own part of that. Which is interesting in itself, because what essentially happens with the use state is that the use state returns the getter and then the setter. So it's going to return a getter and a setter for the entire sort of form state object, and then we'll have to pass through that to each one of the inputs, so that each input needs access to be able to change the state. Maybe we can just do it in this part of here where we have this, so then essentially just the form state instead of this change. So essentially basically what we do is just that we have some sort of thing where we say that update, where we go something like, and then with the updated state is essentially just the piece of the form that changes, so basically just that one field. And then the idea is that the union between the current form state and the updated state is then the new state of the form. That is basically then passed to this update form state function, which is the setter of the form. It's kind of like a change state reaction in Redux, where we essentially pass it a new state, and then it calls this update form state. So maybe that's what we should do. We should have something like a update form state or update form input up here, and then this is essentially then used on this on change. So this on change calls that, and then it also calls so it uses the form input name, and it uses the value that it gets back from from the input element. So it'd be something like const update form input, and then we say, okay, well, this is the input name and this is the new value, and then we say something like update form state, and then we say current form state, and then let's see, that's going to be then the input name, new value, something like that. And then that update form state is then calls the, it's then basically just a setup for one large object. And then on this on change, what we do is we say, okay, well, take the value that we get here, then call update form input, take the form input dot name, and then put the value in there. Because that also makes the input not have to care about the form state. So the input can actually reasonably change, stay unmodified. The reason why we'd like that is that if we keep it free of the context of anything about the form state, then it's more reusable, right? So the thing is with like if we do that, if it only knows about like a name, a value, or on change that it needs to call, and like the type that it needs to be, what we can do with that is we can then either use components from like a different library, because it's not like we don't have to go change those components to care about what's going on with the form state. We can just plug them in. Same thing with this stuff, like we can keep it generic. So if I want to use any of these inputs outside of this like whole form idea, form state idea, then I just kind of copy paste them and put them somewhere else, right? So I don't have to go and then have a component that's form state aware and a component that's not, and then try and keep them looking the same exactly, like, or functioning the same, instead where the one has a form state and the one doesn't, which is kind of ideal for what I want to do. Now the big question is that how much work is going to be to do all of this stuff for the form state. Like, I think it's doable, and I think I can get it done-ish, but I'm actually just going to leave this for another video, because I think it's going to be like another 30 minutes, 45 minutes to be able to do this, to fix this. And then also I want to go read up a bit about exactly how to do this thing, where I basically say, okay, well, I want a new object from an old object from a bit of a change state. And then what I also then need to do is then also I need to figure out how to essentially invert all of this use state stuff, where I basically build the form group first. Like, it's going to be kind of look exactly like this, right? So it's not going to be very different from this. So we're just going to have a thing that says, okay, well, have something like this, and then for the input names or the input item, I'm probably going to have like a default value for each one of these things. And the nice thing about it, then I don't have to care about that either. I can just do this and then say, okay, well, then say, okay, well, do something like this. State, and then set form state, and then say use state, and then say form state, something like this. Make this a const. this is probably going to be something like that. So init form state, Oh yeah, that's still one thing I want to figure out that I actually haven't figured out, is why if I put in like proper linting it doesn't allow me to do I++. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it there now, I think. I'll continue with this, do some reading up, and then I'll take it up in the next video.